Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features the Uncanny X-Men number 146, cover dated June 1981. The cover is by Dave Cockrum, inked by Josef Rubinstein. Cockrum, after he left Uncanny X-Men with issue 107, shifted into a day job at Marvel, working in the design department, specifically on cover designs. So when he returns now to the title with issue 145, his covers are extremely strong. They're very, very well designed, and this is another one of those. So obviously we have Arcade looking at the B team as it was established from the previous issue, who are infiltrating Murderworld in order to rescue those abducted by Miss Locke, and they include Moira MacTaggart, Amanda Sefton, Ileana Rasputin, and Jean Grey's parents. So the cover is, as I said, very well designed, but there is one interesting little detail, which is what's going on with Havoc's costume here. So it seems maybe that there was that there might have been an instruction to fill in the costume with some kind of screen tone or something like that, but the all white is certainly some kind of error, I think. Let's open this one up to the splash page. And here in the narrative caption, we just get caught up on the end of the previous issue. The X-Men have all been defeated and captured by Dr. Doom in his medieval castle in the Adirondack Mountains in upstate New York. So Storm has been reduced to servitude, or so it seems. But outside, all about the castle, there is a storm that has whipped up out of nowhere. Freezing temperatures, rain, gale force winds. Thinks Dr. Doom to himself. According to Arcade, Storm is a weather witch. Could this be her doing? And indeed, it is her doing subconsciously. So the creative team here for this particular story, Murderworld, is Chris Claremont, writer, Dave Cockrum and Josef Rubinstein, artists. What that means is that Cockrum is providing breakdowns and Rubinstein finishes in the inks. Tom Orzechowski, letterer, and Glynis Wine, colorist. Now let's continue with the story. So this is very much a middle chapter. There is a lot of action in this particular issue, but the plot only gets developed so far until it gets concluded in the subsequent issue. So Doom here orders Storm to go get him and Arcade some mulled wine, and she responds positively as you command, Lord Doom, as she bows towards him, and that seems very out of character for Storm. And then there's a little bit of dialogue here between Arcade and Doom. And Arcade is disappointed that the X-Men were so easy to defeat. He says here, I just expected better from the X-Men, as he begins fingering these chess pieces here. So this is a game that's going on between Doom and Arcade. And Doom says here, you thought Doom could be overcome by a ragtag collection of children. Truly, Arcade, your arrogance rivals my own. And Arcade responds, big talk, Vic, from a man without a country. Tell me, how many times have you beaten the Fantastic Four in your, spelt wrong, illustrious career? Touché, responds Doom. You're an honest man, my friend, albeit an infuriating one. I find that quality refreshing, because otherwise we'd imagine that Dr. Doom wouldn't tolerate that kind of familiarity from someone like Arcade. And then this is interesting. So the paintings in Doom's room here are liquid crystal display units, and they give him covert camera access to where the X-Men are imprisoned within the castle. And what has been designed for them by Doom are very specific cells that challenge them in terms of their powers. So he says here, I've never met the X-Men before. Their powers are new to me. I wish to examine them, learn their strengths, their weaknesses, how they fight and think. And so that's really what we're going to see over the course of this issue. So every one of them has a special cell designed for them. And Nightcrawler's is very interesting. The cell is a featureless cube, thinks Nightcrawler to himself. I have no idea of where it is or what's outside. This is fiendishly simple trap. If I teleport blind, without knowing where I'm going, I could materialize inside something solid, rock, ground, part of the castle, a person, anything. The resultant physical disruption would kill me instantly. So that's his death trap. And here we've Colossus, who's clinging to the top of a rocky outcrop, and all around him there's a whirlpool. So the whirlpool is rising all the time, so time is running out for him. He decides he might jump down into the water because in his armored form he'll be pretty much invulnerable and he doesn't need to breathe. But then he sees these laser cannons blasting debris from the rock that he's hanging onto, and he thinks to himself that he doesn't really know how much damage they might do him, and they might actually kill him even in his armored form. So that's his challenge. Wolverine, meanwhile, is in some kind of zero gravity chamber, and also these flaming op art walls are scrambling my senses, so he's getting disoriented. He hits a wall, but just as he hopes that maybe he'll get his bearings, we're told in the narrative captions, the repeller fields built into the walls automatically bounce Wolverine from one end of the cell to the other, and it bounces him all around to the point that he begins to lose his tenuous hold on sanity slowly, inexorably. It slips away. Then the focus shifts to Angel. So Angel is in a room where he's sitting atop a perch. The windows are open, but when he goes to fly out, he gets attacked in a random pattern by these laser blasts, these laser cannons. They hit him in the wing and his arm. So he goes back to the perch and he thinks, the lasers are not set to kill, but if he takes too much damage from them in trying to escape, he could very well have his spinal column severed, he thinks here to himself. So this is the challenge facing him. And then we're back up to Doom's main room, and Storm has arrived with the mulled wine for him and Arcade is shocked. He says aloud, "I don't believe it. I thought she'd of them all, only Cyclops and maybe Wolverine, the little psycho," I like that little detail from Arcade, "equaled her indomitable will. Yet you've made her the perfect servant. How'd you do it?" So Doom reveals his secret. She's a robot. So Arcade is impressed, and here is Storm still encased in chrome from the end of the previous issue. And Doom explains, in substance, she's not unlike the organic steel that comprises Colossus's armored form, except that his life processes are normal, while hers have been slowed to almost nothing. He can move, she cannot. And Doom continues, he says, "I've spared the child the ravages of age. She will live and remain beautiful forever." But Storm isn't going to be grateful for that. So here we go. We get inside her mind here, what's going on, and we're reminded that she is an incurable claustrophobic. So she's not going to take very well to this. So faced with what she perceives as a primal threat, she summons an equally primal response. Her metalloid form inhibits conscious thought, but her subconscious is free to act. And so the storm rages around the castle, and the weather systems are disrupted all the way out to the uncharted island on which Cyclops and Lee Forster were shipwrecked in the previous issue. And they're even struck by a bolt of lightning there, but they survive it. Cyclops' blindfold comes off, so he lashes out with his optic blast. So Lee has seen that now, and he's going to have to give her an explanation, but not for the moment. Now we catch up with the B team. So in the previous issue, the X-Men split into two teams. The all-new, all-different X-Men on one side, led by Storm, and then the Silver Age characters. So we've got Iceman there, we've got Havoc and Polaris, and we've got Banshee. And they are making their way to Murderworld to see if they can rescue the kidnapped loved ones of the X-Men. So Polaris uses her powers to determine the underground source of Murderworld. They go to the last location that they encountered Arcade back in 123, 124, an amusement park, but they locate the underground true location of Murderworld. So they make their way down through this particular landfill project area on North Beach, and Havoc blasts away down for them, and they make their way into a control room type area, or so it appears to them. In the twinkling of an eye, Polaris overloads and short circuits every electrical system in the complex. So now they think they've neutralized Murderworld, and Havoc says, "In we go, group, let's press our advantage while we've got it." But do they have an advantage? Well, then a holographic image of Miss Locke appears in an interesting magenta colour hole there, combination of Cockrum and Glyniswine working together. And she explains to them, "Welcome back. I see you've brought some, she addresses Banshee specifically because he was there the previous time. I see you've brought some new playmates with you, how thoughtful. And Polaris says, impossible. I destroyed every circuit. This complex should be dead. But Locke says, I'm afraid not, my dear, as you'll soon discover. Welcome to Murderworld, X-Men. And as she pops away in her holographic form, the X-Men individually fall down these trapdoors into these chutes, and they're going to find themselves facing their very particular death traps. And here Locke is with the kidnapped loved ones. Stevie Hunter defiant there. Locke threatening that that she'll kill them ultimately. So here Havoc finds himself in some sort of crazy roller coaster setup. The engines in the rocket that he's fallen into are firing, the rocket's moving. And then he finds himself in some kind of like computer game, Space Invaders type scenario. So very much Claremont drawing on the pop culture of the late 70s, early 80s for these scenarios. And then this huge ship targets Havoc here, and he thinks to himself, I think things just got worse. So we're going to pick up now with Iceman. Iceman has got a very particular death trap here. We've got these ice hockey players coming towards him. He easily creates an ice wall for them to knock into. But then he discovers that the ice beneath him, underneath that is acid. And these heaters in the wall are heating the ice, so it's starting to melt. So he's got to maintain the ice or he's going to fall into the acid. And then Polaris's death trap is she wakes up on this amusement arcade carousel, and it looks like Illyana is there too. So she goes after Illyana, but the horses on the carousel come to life and start attacking her. One of them kicks her in the back with its hoof. So we continue here. Then she destroys them with her magnetic powers easily, but Illyana turns out not to be Illyana and shoots Polaris with a gun. Eat hot lead, sucker, she cries out. That's a very interesting face, very freaky face. And I was getting reminded of Don't Look Now, that 1973 film with Donald Sutherland and Julie Christie, set in Venice. Then we switch to Banshee, and we've got kind of like a Westworld setup here, where he's in a shootout with these cowboys, and he manages to take this particular one out. So he's got no problem there, but then the others start shooting at him. And then what is revealed is he's got some bombs as well. So he manages to take out all those guys hiding in the saloon there. But then that reveals this roller coaster setup, and apparently Moira MacTaggert tied to the tracks with this like early cinema mustache twirling villain saying, "You're too late, hero. Yeah, ha ha ha. Already a train is rushing toward your beloved Moira MacTaggert. You'll never save her." So that's Sean's challenge there. And then we're back with Havoc. So he's doing well against, he abandons his little rocket. He gets onto that huge, let's call it the mothership or something like that, busts inside it, and then uses his power to take out systems that he thinks look pretty important. I wonder what will happen if I break it, he says. And he's having an effect. So down in the proper control room of Murderworld, this guy Chambers realizes or sees on his readout system here, his computer readout, that Sector 12, there's a problem there, there's a dysfunction. So Locke tells him to go, but to be careful. Polaris here uses her power to take apart the robot Illyana, and because, you know, the robot Illyana used a metal gun and bullet against her, and that's no good against the mistress of magnetism. But then the carousel starts turning again, so she's still not out of trouble yet. But she uses her power to counter the spin of the carousel, and she thinks, phew, I'm glad that's over. This magnetic anti-gravity force field should protect me from any more attacks and give me the breathing space I need to figure out my next move. No breathing space given, so what happens is there's a neutralizing inhibitor field that counters her powers, and she falls through this particular opening here. And now we're going to get a team up. So Iceman grabs her. So that's a mistake on the part of the Murderworld systems to allow two X-Men to team up. And they shatter their way through this particular wall. And who or what are they going to find on the other side? Well, we have to wait and see for the moment. But here, Chambers going to investigate the dysfunction, finds the culprit, Havoc, who blasts him with his plasma blast. Well, that's interesting. So I wonder if what's going on here is on the cover, because Havoc is using his power, that this is a Cockrum's idea that his costume turns white when he uses his power for some reason. That's intriguing. And then we're back with Banshee and the trolley dilemma. He has a trolley dilemma here. A lot of work on the scaffolding for the roller coaster here. So definitely Cockrum not scrimping on the backgrounds. And so Banshee knocks away the mustache twirling ham villain, but he's got a trolley type dilemma. So on the roller coaster, there is Amanda Sefton and Candy Southern. Candy Southern is Angel's girlfriend. So he can't use his bomb against the roller coaster. You might kill them. And he's got a problem because Moira McTaggart is tied to the tracks with wire, not rope. So he can't get her free in time. So he's going to blast them in the roller coaster, but then Iceman arrives. So that's where they got to, Iceman and Polaris. And the two working together are able to get Candy and Amanda out clear. And so all seems well, except suddenly the women start smiling villainously. And of course, they turn out to be androids. So, and they explode. But Polaris twigs what's going on. Just now, I magna scanned them and found that they didn't have the natural magnetic auras of living beings. As it is, I barely erected the force field in time to protect us. So, what's going to happen next? Well, Havoc gets the drop on Miss Locke. And because she's watching Banshee and Polaris and the others, and he tells her, surrender or fight, Miss Locke, the choice is yours. But she says she'll fight, but Havoc uses his plasma blast to blow away her weapon. And once our heroes determine that Miss Locke and Mr. Chambers are the only people in Murderworld, other than themselves and the hostages, of course, it becomes a relatively simple matter to disarm the giant complex, revive and release their friends, and finally make their weary way back to the waiting hovercraft here. There, they find that things have changed somewhat since they went underground. So they went underground roughly 6 hours earlier, and this is Storm's doing out here, and they figure it out, or rather Banshee does. He says, only two people I know are capable of whipping up instant hurricanes, Thor and Storm, but I can't imagine Aurora creating anything this big. I doubt she could control it. We'd best return home, Alex, as fast as we can. I fear this night's battles may be far from over. So interesting. This is a really good looking panel, by the way, with the two and the rendering of the high wind and rain here as well. I like the detail of Banshee's hair blowing in the wind, Lorna's too. But I like also the characterization from Claremont, where he is really kind of putting the leader role on Banshee rather than Havoc. Here as the older man, and Banshee is that bit more tuned in to what's going on around. He's got his eye on the big picture there. So last page, and we go back to the castle upstate, where Doom is still wondering about the weather outside, and he's thinking it's getting more and more violent, and it grows in size and strength, the storm, with every passing minute. It seems centered on this castle. Something has been set in motion here that I had not anticipated. So there is a wrinkle in Doom's strategy. Meanwhile, Arcade, who was a little bit down earlier about how easily the X-Men were defeated, is in high spirits now, lighting up a Havana cigar. And Doom says to him, Arcade, if you wish to tell me something, please do. Arcade is laughing to himself there. He's saying, why, Vic, I do believe I've struck a nerve. Since I'm on a roll, I'll whack it again. Take a look at your liquid crystal display monitor. Hotshot. You see what I just saw? Nightcrawler's disappeared. So Nightcrawler's been in that blank cube all that time, and he's figured out a way to get out. And remember that Dave Cockrum's favorite X-Man is Nightcrawler. So Cockrum back on the Uncanny X-Men comic, you can bet that Nightcrawler is going to play a pivotal part in the X-Men. because of Cockrum's return. So next issue, the X-Men's climactic showdown with Doctor Doom and Arcade. So part 3, the final part of this 3-part storyline. There is no letters page this particular issue. There you go. I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on Uncanny X-Men 146. If you did, please like the video on YouTube. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.